Welcome to the Late Night Race Review. Fire in the grass and in Hadjar's ass, but nothing to extinguish on race day. And Tsunoda becomes relatable as he proves it's always more comfortable to take a dump in your own home. It's the Japanese Grand Prix. Don't forget to support the podcast by hitting those like, follow and subscribe buttons.
Welcome on into the Late Night Race Review, and we are back for the Japanese Grand Prix. But before we unpack all of the action from this weekend, we need to firstly mention probably one of the biggest news stories coming into this weekend. And no, it's not the fact that Liam Lawson got his well-deserved Father Ted Bishop Brennan kick up the arse out of Oracle Red Bull Racing and replaced with Tsunoda. No, it's the news that you've all been waiting for, because this weekend, making his return to the Late Night Race Review podcast, is the man whose voice could melt the brow off of a woman's back and make a bodybuilder's bicep pop. It's everyone's favorite F1 Portuguese hand cannon. It's Isidro Gonçalves. Welcome on in, Isidro.
Thanks, Aidan. Yeah, that's far too kind. It's great to be back.
Of course, we did miss you. Of course, we miss you a lot for China, but it's good to have you back here for Japan. But of course, we can't forget, we do have another panelist with us today as well. And joining us all the way from the US of America, and should probably replace Danica Patrick as F1's American panelist, my brother, Damien Scott. Welcome on in, Damien.
Very much. I appreciate the introduction, but yeah, Danica Patrick, please don't mention her in the same sentence as me, please.
Well, look, you're in America, so you know, just putting that out there into the universe. But I thought, look, folks, I would hype up that intro because, as we've all seen from the Japanese Grand Prix, it was I'm not going to say interesting, but it was probably a race of attrition. But before we get into the race itself and all that kind of stuff, guys, walk me through quali. How do you think quali went? And let me know your biggest takes from the qualifying session. And look, what we'll do is we'll start off with Isidro, because we did miss him for China. So we'll bring Isidro in first, and then Damien, you can give me your thoughts as well.
Thanks, Aidan. Well, for the qualification, I think the biggest thing that happened was the Verstappen getting the pole. I mean, everyone was surprised, even Verstappen. I don't think he was so happy to get a pole with that car, and that was definitely the highlight of the qualification. That and the problem with the Hadjar balls. They definitely need to get some space in there if they want the man to reach the podium.
Yeah. He definitely had a bit of a sore weekend with the old wedding veg, you know. But yeah.
But other than that, I think it was interesting to see Lawson and Tsunoda in the same Q2 for a change. I don't think Lawson has been in the Q2 since the start of the race.
That's true. Yeah, no, to be honest, this was his first Q2 appearance. He was probably, sweating a little bit under the brow when he was going into Q2. He was like, I've never been here before. What do I do? But yeah, no, definitely a bit of an interesting one. And especially obviously going into this weekend with the swap of Tsunoda and the likes of Lawson. You know, I think obviously Lawson probably wanted to prove a lot and probably stick it to Oracle Red Bull Racing. But obviously, we'll touch on that when we go into the race, because we all seen the result of Lawson, but yeah. But yeah, anything else that stuck out for you guys in quali, and anything that really, between obviously, the grass catching fire and, Max Verstappen's lap basically being the exact same thing, catching fire around Suzuka. Anything else that stuck out for you guys?
Yeah, I think if we're on the rookie watch, Hadjar again, and another great qualifying round from him in P7. I think he did the same in China. Like I think the most, before the start of the season, he would have been the most underrated or kind of unknown of the names coming in. So yeah, him after a kind of a dodgy start that he had in Australia to two P7s, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
he's really yeah, the dark horse as such. He's really proven his worth so far. He's having really good qualifying sessions.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think with the rookies, especially, like, going back and touching on that again, like, we've seen obviously Kimi, Hajar, and then of course, when we had the likes of Behrman making it in there, coming in at, what was it, P10 that he managed to come in at. Out of all of those rookies, like those three guys have been very, very consistent when it comes to performance. And then obviously when you kind of look at the rest of the rookies, again, Liam Lawson, we're classifying him as a rookie because, again, this is his first proper season in F1. And then when you look at Jack Doohan and his massive blunder that he made in practice, not the quali, but, like you can kind of see that some are struggling. And then also as well, Bortolao, like I know he's in the likes of that Sauber or Kick Steak, whatever they're called. He's you can see, like, with some of them, they are definitely struggling, but it's really good to see the likes of Kimi. Like obviously, like, I want to highlight Kimi because he had a fantastic qualifying session, and also as well, he did have a really, really good race. But one thing I want to touch on is obviously the fact that, again, last race, Fernando Alonso struggled. And then again, going into this weekend again, he had a bit of difficulty, not only in quali, but obviously over the race pace as well. But I think what I want to try and maybe touch on, first of all, because again, look, this is Suzuka. I love Suzuka. It's home to the Japanese Grand Prix, the Honda base, Toyota, all that kind of stuff. So again, when you kind of think going into next year, when Honda, this is their last year with Oracle Red Bull Racing, and they're going to be moving on to Aston Martin. When you look at that driver pairing with Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, I mean, again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how Stroll did this weekend. Like, is that sort of going to be maybe a wasted opportunity with that driver pairing? Like, again, Alonso, we know he's a fantastic driver. He's had a great career, but he's kind of getting to that stage now, and we've seen it that he is starting to struggle. I
think that Alonso is. I'm going to start with Stroll first. Stroll was the only driver doing 129 on the qualification. That says a lot about Stroll and the car. But if Helmut Marko had any power, Stroll would be gone off Aston Martin long time ago, and they would put any other driver would probably get more points to Aston Martin than Stroll is doing. Alonso, I think he's not accusing the age, but I think he's reaching a time that I'm not sure if he's ready to start the 2026 car regulations and everything. I wouldn't be surprised if this would be his last race, not race, but championship. Because
I agree on that one, Cedro.
From a strategy perspective, I don't think it's good to start new regulations, start 26 with a driver and just replace that driver in the next year. I mean, if you want to be serious, you have to think long. And even though I like Alonso, I don't think you would. Even if he stays, I don't think for a strategy it's good if he stays for next year, because you are building a team for a long run and not to replace someone. I mean, this is Aston Martin, not Red Bull, that hires a driver and then replace him after two races.
Yeah, no, true. Very, very true. I mean, like, it like, obviously, like we kind of seen from Alonso, like, he did sort of throw out hints there that he was there for the long run. And of course, like, obviously when he's seen the fact that Adrian Newey would be coming in, Honda would be the engine supplier, I'm pretty sure he probably seen that, and he was probably thinking to himself, oh, another championship, another possible championship we could get under our belt here. But, it is getting to that stage now where I really think Aston Martin, they need to get their finger out of their hole for next year, especially with these new set of regulations. They need to take a long, hard look at Stroll and Alonso, and they need to kind of say to themselves, are they willing to go the extra mile, excuse the pun, for the next set of regulations, because obviously, you know, when you have that combination of Adrian Newey and Honda engines, I mean, the only thing you have left there, or the key ingredient, is Max Verstappen to make the trifecta there, you know. But Damien, what's your opinions on that? You know, when it comes to Stroll and Alonso, like, you know, like going into, like, I know obviously we're focusing on this season, but we do need to look down the line, especially when we're here at Suzuka. You know, Honda is the main sort of theme of this weekend, especially because it is the last season with Red Bull. We need to talk about that going forward for next season, and then of course we can forget about it for the next race.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with what Isidro was saying there. I think he, if we're talking about Stroll first, he qualified 20th and finished 20th in the race. Not any give away any spoilers or anything, but he was like a lap down, I think 90 seconds or more. Yeah, it's like, what's a lap, 133 or something, whatever it was. He was well past that, you know, so he was way out of touch in the race. He was never in it. I think he started on softs in the race itself. He was just trying to mix things up a little bit, and you know that didn't pay off for him. And for Alonso as well. I think the past three races, yeah, I think it's just showing that it's not going well for him so far this season. If this continues over the season, then you know, if he does a Checo, yeah, I think then Aston Martin really have to start looking at next season and building for the future. You know, I think he qualified 13th and finished, you know, outside the points as well, and in similar kind of position. So yeah, it's he looks like he's struggling out there. I don't know if it's the car or what's going on with him, but yeah, he's not having a great start to the season. And if that continues, then they'll definitely be looking at maybe alternatives for next season, because there's a lot of good drivers out there that have lost seats in the past couple of years. There's lots of new rookies coming through, so yeah, it's going to be a tough summer break. As a silly season they call it. I think we'll hear more then as we get into the summer break.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. When it comes to silly season, it's definitely a silly one. And, you know, we thought maybe we could get away a season without mentioning Checo Perez, but obviously his name kind of cropped up there during the week as well. He kind of put it out there publicly that he has been talking to a few teams, you know, like obviously in apologies, in the last episode, we did obviously talk about the fact that Cadillac are now going to be joining the grid as well going into next season. But then if you kind of think about it, you know, that Checo Perez combination there, the American Mexican connection, like, I mean, that would obviously make it'd be a good sort of pairing there. But, you know, touching on the whole Aston Martin thing again, you know, he did say he's been talking to multiple areas and multiple teams. So it's not just the fact that, you know, there's two new teams coming to the grid next season. There's a couple of opportunities in there, and who knows, we could possibly, I'm just throwing it out there, and I could be completely wrong in saying this, but who knows, maybe Perez, Aston Martin, you know, like that could be a potential thing. But sticking with Honda anyway, we do obviously need to talk about Red Bull. Obviously in qualifying, they were finding it a little bit difficult, or, you know, just before qualifying, they were finding it a little bit difficult with the likes of understeer on the car. They were having they were struggling overall when it came to it. But of course, the man of the moment, the man of the hour, the guy who pretty much steps up when everyone needs him to do so, Max Verstappen, puts in that blistering lap to outqualify Lando Norris. And of course, we will definitely talk about McLaren as well before we pop into the race here, because that's definitely a can of beans we need to open there when it comes to the papaya. But again, Max Verstappen, take me through it, guys. What did you think of the lap? What did you think of that situation there, getting on pole to qualify P1?
I was surprised to see him on pole, and surprised to see the race result. But I thought the pole was just one time only, considering what we saw during the practice, that car was not that stable or fast. But in the qualification, Max definitely, I was saying, he stepped up his game, and he managed to get a pole out of nowhere. And see the McLaren's just a touch behind Max. It was interesting. It looks like that's going to be an interesting championship, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a very, very close one. But then again, you know, when we look at Tsunoda coming in here, replacing Liam Lawson, you know, I'm jumping up for joy here in the background. Nobody can see me. But obviously with Tsunoda coming in there, it probably will take him a couple of races to sort of get up to speed as well, and then start to contribute to the points, because that's inevitably that's what they want. They want both drivers scoring points. They want both of them getting up there. So again, that Red Bull can get back to the top. But obviously Tsunoda, he had a bit of a difficult one in quali, and then of course, again, look, we'll touch on the race very, very shortly. But I think Max is definitely proving that regardless of what kind of setup you throw at him or what kind of car that he's in, he can put that together and he can deliver when it's absolutely necessary. But yeah, Damien, let me know your thoughts on Super Max, as they like to call him.
Yeah, he's just fantastic, isn't he? Like you have to give it to him. Like it's well documented that the past season or so that car has been, they've had issues with it. It's been tough. We've seen the other drivers go through the ringer in that second seat, and he just pulls it out of, I'm not going to say nowhere. It's his, he's Max Verstappen. He knows how to do it just when he needs to. And I think the two McLarens were kind of pinging back and forth on P1 there, and I think maybe Russell was in the bouts as well, and then he just comes out of nowhere and pulls this lap, out of the locker. Yeah, he's just class. You have to give it to him. There's no two ways about it. You can love Max Verstappen, or you can hate him, and you can, people have their thoughts on Red Bull and their dominance over the past number of years, but yeah, it's clear to see that he's getting the most out of that car. It's him. It's yeah, and you have to hand it to him. You can't deny he's just so good.
Exactly, like he is proven that regardless of whatever car he's in or whatever kind of setup that they're running, he is Max Verstappen, and he is pretty much proving that he is this generation's greatest of all time. He is going to go up there as the in the championship Hall of Fame next to Schumacher, Senna. Hamilton's going to be in there obviously as well, but he is going to go through that as well. He is proven that. And then again, as you said there, second driver coming in, regardless, he has just proven that he is just fantastic. And you took the words right out of my mouth there. Love him or hate him, he is just absolutely fantastic at what he does in any condition. I mean, look at Brazil last year. Coming from all the way back of the grids to win in that race. But of course, look, we're not here for Brazil, we're here for Japan. But lastly, before we touch on the race itself, again, look, we have brought it up here a couple of times. Mercedes, that pairing with Russell and Kimi. I mean, consistency is key, and they are demonstrating that. Now, obviously, I know Russell wasn't really in the same position as he was in China, but again, with the likes of Kimi Antonelli there coming in, first season, the youngest guy on the grids, he's just proven to everybody that he has what it takes to be a possible future world champion. Isidro, what are your thoughts on Kimi before we pop into the race?
I think Toto Wolff was right. I have to say, he took a huge risk to have a rookie in the seat of a Mercedes. Usually, you get the rookie in the Williams for a while, and then you bring it to Mercedes. But it just went straight away. And I mean, for the exception on the first FP1 Australia that he crashed the car, since then it's just been flawless, and he's been in the top, getting points, fighting for the top places, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see Antonelli sometime this year in the podium for sure, because he's been driving brilliantly for a rookie, and it's a Mercedes, so there's a lot of pressure. I'm pretty sure, because they see an 18-year-old driving a Mercedes, and they see that Russell now has a younger guy that is definitely fighting and showing that he deserves to be there. So I'm sure that Russell is not, let's say he's not happy, because now he was expecting that Hamilton out of Mercedes, he will definitely be the top driver. But now you see Antonelli, that he's there and he's showing up, that I don't see why I cannot be the top driver too in this team. So I'm very happy with the Kimi performance so far.
Very true. Very, very true. Now, Kimi is definitely proven that. And then Damien as well. I know you're a Merc fan. I'll bring you in on your opinions on that pairing there, and especially that qualifying for the two of them.
Yeah, he's just been class. Like I think his radio messages today really kind of summed up, his drive and his energy. He was he was talking to the race engineer. I think he has Bono, right?
Yeah, he's got Bono. Yeah.
Bono to work for him. He was like, "Yeah, I'm pushing. I'm doing my best. I'm leaving it all out there." And this was after Bono had said to him, "Yeah, you got the fastest lap. You're going so well." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm pushing. I'm pushing." So he's just really got that enthusiasm, that spirit, and yeah, he's a real racer. He just goes for it, and it's so good to see that. A young fella coming in like that, and he's just pushing, and he's having the time of his life in that car. And yeah, as Cedro said there, Toto, fair play. That was a big call, and it's largely paying off so far. All the signs are positive on that move that he made, and I think it's bringing Russell. It's pushing Russell as well. I think if they brought in somebody more experienced, the dynamic might have changed a little bit, but it's definitely spurring on Russell to be, that leader in the team, and he knows that he's got somebody who's going to push him. So yeah, I think overall great move by Mercedes and Toto, and yeah, hope to see more from Kimi. He's been great so far.
Definitely. No, it's going to be an exciting one for Kimi this season. I'm looking forward to, hopefully seeing him on the podium. It'd be great to see him on there. But moving on from qualifying, we did have the race. We all woke up very, very early this morning to hopefully see something quite exciting. But then it went on for, what was it, 53 laps? And yeah, it was, as I mentioned to the guys there before we went live here, it kind of felt like an F1 showcase for a while. The actual livery reveal was a little bit more exciting than the race itself. But guys, run me through the race. Anything at all that actually stood out when it came to the race? Run me through it. Isidro, I'll bring you in.
I think one of the, let's say, highlights of the race was when Lando and Max, they pit at the same time, and then Max was getting out. Lando tried to win a place, but and end up in the grass, and then he complained a little bit, but we all know that there was nothing there. I think that was the most excitement bit during the whole race. I mean, from the top 10, there was barely any change. I think it was only Ajay was P7, Hamilton was P8, and it finished Hamilton P7 and Ajay P8 because there was nothing. It was like Monaco, no overtakes whatsoever. So that little bit of action in the pit was probably the highlight of the race itself. That and of course, Verstappen getting the winner of the race, and he was very happy. I think he was happy today than when he was last year when he won the championship.
Yeah, definitely. You could see the excitement on his face, and he even did mention there as well the fact that he wanted to make it a good story for their finishing sort of race with Honda at Suzuka. He wanted to make that story happen. Coming in P1 in a Honda engine, he wanted to sort of acknowledge the time frame that they've had together since they moved to those Honda engines. So it was definitely a special one for Max anyway. But even touching on there, little funny one. I remember after the race, they were in the cool down room and they were talking, and I think Max turned to Lando and he even said, he was like, "Wow, that's one expensive lawnmower." I'm not going to lie. I think it was, what was it, at 7 in the morning, half 7 in the morning. And I let out the loudest howl I ever could. And I think I might have woken up my wife when when he said that, because honestly, that whole battle there, I mean, that was really the only sort of major battle we had was in the pit lane. But of course, as you said, there was nothing there. Lando just came out. He seen an opportunity to go, oh, I could actually pass this guy because I had a quicker pit stop. And then, of course, look, Max didn't do anything. He had the right of way, and of course, Lando wanted to. He wanted to challenge that. He pushed me off. He was pulling the old George Russell complaint, as George Russell always liked to say. But yeah, of course, it is what it is. But Damien, your thoughts on the race? What was anything at all that stood out for you? Emphasis on anything.
I was like, it started at 10 p.m. in the evening for me, so I was already a little bit sleepy and getting tired. Had a long day, and I was like, right, keep the eyes open, and it didn't really help too much, did it?
Yeah.
So when I turned on the broadcast, they're like, "Oh, it's been raining this morning. The track's drying out," and I was like, "Yes, okay, right. Let's just gonna mix it up a little bit." And I saw they mentioned that Lando and Max were both, pointing towards each other as like, right, we're going to have, complete chaos in this first corner. And then when everybody got to the first corner, everybody was like, pedestrian, oh no, before you go first, no problem. I was like, no crashes, like, what's going on here? But yeah, and then it continued as such. And yeah, I think the Max and Lando pit release issue was, probably the only thing that really happened in the race, right? Um,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, Max had the right away. I think from the first angle that we saw, it was like, all right, okay, this is, maybe Verstappen's in the wrong here. He's a bit bullish, and he's known for these kind of things. But then when you see the kind of wider angle, yeah, he was 100% in the lane. There's maybe a little kind of dink to the right to kind of hold the line a little bit, but yeah, Lando, yeah, he needed to back off on that one. I think trying to overtake on the grass was maybe a little bit cheeky, but yeah, nothing in it in the end. And yeah, I think the stewards got it right with the call of no further action.
Yeah, definitely, and I think at one stage, you're just talking about the excitement there at the beginning. I think all of us were trying to hopefully see possibly Lance Stroll or Jack Doohan probably pull out like a destruction derby and bring out a safety car at one stage, because it was just literally from lap one right through to the end. It was like, okay, come on, somebody do something here. You're like poking a stick at every car, going, come on, just do something, just make something happen. But there were definitely a couple of on track moments. Like obviously when we seen the battle there with Gasly and Tsunoda, Tsunoda trying to catch Gasly to get into the points, and then even touching on that battle there, like that was obviously a big moment for Tsunoda, because getting out qualified by Lawson in the sister team, and basically the car that is sort of set up to be slower than Oracle Red Bull Racing. I'm going to say that's what it is. But yeah, like to see Tsunoda getting past Lawson, and as soon as he got past Lawson was in a different century. He was back in China, trying to figure out why he got made redundant down, or not redundant, got pushed down to Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, whatever they're called. But yeah, like Lawson was just in a different century. But then Tsunoda eventually getting by Lawson and then trying to catch Gasly. He was having a few moments there. We thought at one stage, yeah, he could actually do this and then hopefully see a battle with Alonso, but he just couldn't do it. He just couldn't get by, which was disappointing, because like I'm not well. Look, I at the very beginning when it came to Yuki, I wasn't really a big fan of Yuki. I thought he was, I'm not saying arrogant, he was very hot-headed at the very beginning when he came into F1, and he did make a lot of mistakes. But Yuki as a driver, he really has shown that he does deserve to be in that seat. He has shown he deserves to be there and to have a chance to actually fight with the top teams. But the fact that he didn't get into the points today, it was a disappointing one. But that was definitely a good on track battle that we've seen there. But of course, look, we need to talk about, first of all, before we go on to the whole papaya thing. I know we've mentioned him already, but Kimi Antonelli, I actually seen a good statistic there during the race. Apparently, he led the race. Now, I could be wrong in saying this, but he led the race from lap 22 right through to lap 32, I believe, on medium tires, and that actually made him the youngest F1 driver to lead a race ever. Like that's a very, very impressive thing. So just hailing back there to what we kind of said about the fact that Kimi Antonelli, that was a great signing by Toto Wolff there. Like that is definitely, that's a champion in the making. And even like the radio calls that he was making today, it was great to see his enthusiasm and his hunger to do that. But guys, I want to bring us on to the papaya issue. McLaren, let me know your thoughts. What is going on at McLaren? What are they doing? I mean, what's going on? Isidro, tell me, what are your thoughts on McLaren?
McLaren is looking at Ferrari strategy books or something, because they definitely had the drivers and the cars today to take Verstappen. Basically, they could undercut Verstappen. They could just risk Piastri or Lando, and that would be it. McLaren would probably get the P1, P3, or P1, P2, and Max would end up in third place if McLaren decided to risk it a bit and change their strategy, which they had none, apparently. All they did was just let's race like we are in first place or something, because they had the opportunity, but they just didn't took any risk at all.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it cost them and it cost them the first place. Fair play, they got points for the construction championship, and they are definitely. I'll be surprised if they don't win the championship this year, because even though they don't win every single race, they are definitely in the podiums so far in every race. So that's a lot of points for them. While, let's say, Red Bull at the moment, there's only one guy doing points for them. But at the moment, McLaren in the construction championship is doing well. But McLaren in the race, in the strategy, I'm not seeing good things there. And today was the proof of it. They could have won this race today if they had their strategy right, or any strategy at all.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I mean, like they've shown that even when it came to testing in Bahrain and even the first couple of races, they've shown that they pretty much do have the fastest car on the grid right now, and they're just not capitalizing on it. You know, like, yeah, okay, they might have put in a few good qualifying laps in a couple of the races, and they've, you know, Lando Norris has come in and shown, oh yeah, look, I can get the fastest lap, and he's recorded the fastest lap of the race. But I mean, just that whole experience there today as a McLaren fan. Now, personally, I'm not a McLaren fan. I do like McLaren. I think they're, you know, obviously, I would like to see, you know, another possible championship win from McLaren, and hopefully one of the drivers getting the constructors win as well. But just that strategy call there today, I mean, you could even see Piastri trying to catch up, and then eventually it just got to a stage where I even thought to myself, like, did the engineers come across the radio and just say, okay, lads, just back off, we'll get them next race? Like, that's kind of how it felt, though, you know. But Damien, what are your thoughts on the McLaren situation? It's a bit of a weird one.
They were very disappointing. Like, you know, if you watch a race, you want to go see racers, you know, pushing and yeah, it was a very business-like approach in their strategy. Yeah, as Isidro was saying, it was like, yeah, let's just keep the, you know, the constructors' championship points in the bank. We'll get these here, and we'll, you know, move on to the next race. They did so many opportunities to push. I think it was about 10 laps to go, and Oscar got on the radio, and he's like, "Look, I've got a bit of pace here. Are we going to push? Is Lando going to push?" You know, you could see him, you know, trying to get the swap done if he can go and attack Max. And I think the race engineer came back to him and was like, "No, Lando's, you know, he's going fine. It's grand, no problem." And I was like, "Yeah, what's going on here? This sounds a little bit strange." And I think at that stage, Lando was maintaining about a 1.5 seconds gap to Max, and I think it was maybe the same back to Oscar. And they started pushing for a little bit. It got down to maybe a second, 1.1 seconds, and you know, Oscar got up closer to Lando. Was like, okay, right, they're going for it. And then with about 3 laps left, it just kind of, oh, you know, we're fine. They backed off again. They maintained those like 1.5 second gaps, and I was just like, what are you doing, guys? Just push, go for it, like push them, you know. And I think it was Jacques Villeneuve was on the co-coms as well this weekend, and he was, you know, pushing as well, or saying as well, you know, why are they not pushing? Just go for it. You know, he was. I think they're all getting a little bit frustrated with the sitting back and not pushing. You know, so yeah, it was pretty disappointing for McLaren, to be honest. The chance was there to push Max and perhaps, you know, make him make a mistake. You know, because that car he's not 100% comfortable in. You know, go on, push him, try to make that mistake. So, yeah, very disappointing from a kind of strategy point of view. But yeah, they have points in the bag for the constructors, which, you know, might have been their call from the beginning of the weekend. So from that perspective, fair play. But yeah, it made it really boring kind of spectacle of the race. It was a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, definitely for sure. It was a bit of a strange one when it came to the strategy calls. But I think regardless of what time of the season it is, I know we're only 3 races in, and I know a lot of people will probably say, all right, well, guys, look, there's a long way to go. We still have the rest of the season to hopefully make something happen. But every race, you have to capitalize on every single point that you can pick up. And, you know, if you're just sitting back and just letting things happen, like you even raised a good point there. I kind of even felt at the very beginning of the race that everyone was just going, oh yeah, no, you first, you go ahead, you do this. It was a really, really strange one. Like, I mean, personally, I like to see a race when there's no crashes. I like to see everyone finish, but at the same time too, I like to see good, hard racing. And it just felt that there wasn't really not really any of that today. It just kind of felt that like the teams were out there just kind of practicing their race pace to see what's possible down the line. And I mean, at a race like Suzuka, you want some action. It's a track that is designed to showcase the skill of a driver. Like, I mean, that's what Suzuka is. It's a very tough track. There's a lot of changes and elevation, and you know, it's a real tough one to get around. But like, I mean, it was boring. It was definitely a bit of a snooze fest when it came to the overall majority of the race. But anything else that actually stood out for the race, guys? Anything before we move on to the overall results of the Grand Prix and the rest of the episode?
Yeah, I think the point as well, I think it was Russell was looking to come in and pit, and he was asking, you know, should we do an undercut or what should we do? And I think his race engineer said, yeah, the whole pack is like evenly distributed out. If you come in, you're going to come, you know, way down the pack. So I'm not sure if that was something to do with the track. It's pretty high speed. All the cars were within, I think, a second of each other the whole way down from 1 to 20. There was like a 1 second gap between each car. So I don't think that helped matters today. You know, it was,
yeah,
there wasn't a lot of corners for, you know, everybody gets packed up or a chance to do some late braking, which sometimes gives excuse me, a good advantage. But yeah, I think the track and the conditions really played into that. You know, it was a little bit of a high speed procession.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. It was a bit of a weird one today. But Isidro, anything else that stood out for you for the race?
No, pretty much nothing else happened. It was just Verstappen, McLaren not doing anything, and Aljar having problem with his balls. And I think that's holding me back. If they fix that problem, I think we'll see Aljar in the podium.
Yeah, his balls finally came through for him in the overall race pace. But Damien, you actually mentioned something there. Now, is it actually true about Sainz getting that not that penalty, but that fine at the very end? Was that actually true?
Yeah, I read it this morning after I just woke up there, and I was kind of looking through some of the Facebook pages or Instagram posts from the various F1 outlets, and yeah, apparently it is true. But again, it's too crazy for it not to be true. I'd put it that way, you know.
Because, yeah, exactly. Because when I read it, I thought it was one of those like F1 joke meme things, or they just make up some random thing that the stewards, you know, came up with. I was like, what, really? You know, he's pulling a Kimi Räikkönen. He was like, I was taking a shit. But yeah, definitely a tough weekend for Williams, for sure. Like, even Albon was complaining over the radio as well. He wasn't having a good time with his engineers. He was, you know, he's definitely playing out his villain arc this weekend. We all thought Albon was the nice guy, but now he's starting to play into the villain role, given out over the radio. He had a bit of a tough one when it came to the strategy for pitting him. But overall for the race, guys, let's run on through it, because, you know, obviously we know how it ended up. Of course, Verstappen coming in there on P1. I mean, he had an awesome race. And like, one thing I do want to mention though as well, you know, you're even talking there about the fact that, you know, the cars were only about maybe 1.5 seconds to a couple of seconds, you know, behind each other. Even though, yes, it was quite a lackluster race today, it's still good to finally see the cars all kind of grouped up together. I know that usually happens for the last season of the regulations. Whenever, you know, we get a new set, they always, you know, bunch up together near the very end. But it is good to finally see that we're hopefully getting some close racing, you know, because before, you know, you look at 2023, we had the Max Verstappen 15 million seconds ahead of everybody else. And then the rest of the grid were just trying to figure out why their car was so shit. Now we actually have a season where all the cars are fairly kind of bunched up together. You know, there's a few little ones that kind of stick out here and there, but it's good to finally see that even though Verstappen, he put in a really solid race. I mean, you look at P2 and P3, Norris and Piastri, yes, McLaren, they made some very terrible strategy calls there, but they finished 1.5 seconds behind Max Verstappen, and then Piastri 2.1 seconds. But then moving down through the rest of the grid, Ferrari, we didn't even mention Ferrari. Where were they? What happened to Ferrari? I mean, Leclerc 16 seconds off the lead there, coming in at P4, and we'll touch on Hamilton very, very shortly. But guys, what happened to Ferrari? Let me know your thoughts real quick on Ferrari. What happened with them?
I think you said everything. They didn't exist in the race today. At least I think they were still in shock after what happened in China with the qualification, and today they were just trying to play safe because they finished in P4 and P7, but we didn't see that in the race. If we just seen the paper, the Ferrari did very well, P4 and P7, but in the track, we barely saw them.
They were just non-existent. It felt like we just didn't get to see any of Ferrari. Damien, your thoughts on Ferrari before we move on?
Yeah, they were pretty anonymous. I think at the start, maybe 2 or 3 corners in, or maybe a couple of laps in, Hadjar, you got ahead of Hamilton, and you're kind of waiting for Hamilton to overtake him, and I think it took him 3 or 4 laps, whatever it was. But that was really the only time I remember the commentators really talking about Hamilton or Ferrari, or we actually saw the car on track. You just kind of saw flashes of it in the background when it was focusing on other incidents or whatever it might be, the few incidents we had. But yeah, just anonymous. And Leclerc, I don't think I saw him at all during the race. I can't really recall seeing him battling with anybody. I think he finished 16, 17 seconds behind
Yeah.
Piastri, something like that. Like, yeah, they were just nowhere.
Bit of a weird one for sure for Ferrari. Definitely a bit of a strange one. But moving on down through the rest of the grid as well, Damien's favourite, Mercedes, Russell and Antonelli coming in there in P5 and P6. I mean, as I said, consistency is key, and it is great to see Mercedes back up there. We mentioned it in the last episode. Mercedes, they've had a couple of tough years, especially with this current set of regulations, but it's a bit disappointing that in the final year we're now seeing Mercedes catching up to everybody else. But look, it's good to see, and I'm glad to see it. Then of course, we already mentioned Hamilton coming in there in P7, and then of course Mr. Soreballs Hajar coming in at P8. He finally figured out what was going on down south there, and then Albon coming in there at P9, and then finally Oliver Behrman wrapping up the old P10 in that Haas. I mean, Oliver Behrman, guys, talk me through it. I mean, look, this rookie, he is honestly, I think he's definitely up there with Antonelli. I think Antonelli, I put him at my number 1 for the best rookie of this season so far. But Behrman, he's just class. He really is. Isidro, what are your thoughts on Behrman?
Yeah, I agree. Behrman, considering that he's driving a Haas 2025 Haas, and he's still getting points out of it, it tells a lot about the quality of Behrman. I mean, we saw him driving the Ferrari last year, and even with no preparation, he was able to handle the car just fine. And this year driving the Haas, it definitely shows that he has skills, and he definitely deserves to be in the better car. If not 2026, at least 2027, they should put in a decent car, because we definitely see Behrman skills.
Yeah, no, he is class. And Damien, what do you think of Behrman as well?
Yeah, he's, for a rookie, he's Mr. Consistent, right? He qualified 10th, finished 10th. He's his skill levels are up there. He's been part of that Ferrari stable for a few years, and as I said, we saw him. Was it 1 or 2 races maybe last year? I can't remember how many he was in for. But just straight in, and he just, like Antonelli, he seems to have that real, just natural ability just to get in the car and just drive it and get stuck in. He's no fear, and he has just a nice little bit of arrogance, I think, as well, as we saw. He's a little bit cheeky, but yeah, he's pushing really well. And obviously Ferrari are a supplier to Haas as well, of their engine. So there's that still connection there. I don't know, maybe in a few years he could be pulled into a Ferrari seat. Not sure how long Hamilton's going to stick around. Maybe at the end of this contract, that's him done. Who knows? But yeah, thoughts for another day. But yeah, he could be in a really good car in the next couple of years, and there's a lot of potential there for him. He's real natural racer.
Yeah, no, for sure. Mr. Chow is definitely one to look out for. His word of the day, Mr. Chow. But of course, Behrman, he has a lot of potential, and he will more than likely end up in one of those top teams down the line anyway. We just have to wait for all the old, all the older ones to get out of the way. But wrapping up the rest of the grid, obviously, we'll quickly run through it there. Alonso, P11. Tsunoda, disappointing. He did want to get points coming in there in P12. Gasly, P13. Sainz, P14. We had Jack Doohan, who, I think obviously he definitely needs a lot more time in the old racing sim because, he had a few incidents and obviously that major incident in practice. Coming in there at P15. But again, look, it's good to see that he kind of got up there. Hulkenberg, P16. Lawson, P17. Oh, God. And then, of course, Ocon in 18th, Bortoletto in 19th, and lovely Stroll, who just strolled around the track for the entire race, P20. There we go. That was the entire grid for the Japanese Grand Prix. Guys, anything else before we move on to our lovely drivers of the day? Anything else that stuck out before we wrap that up?
No, I think we covered everything that happened in Japan, which was not much.
All good for me.
All good. Okay, cool. So we'll move on to our driver of the day and, of course, our dick of the day. I'll get mine out of the way here first. I would love it to give it my driver of the day to Ollie Behrman, but I have to give it to Max. Hats off to Max. He had a great race. He had a great qualifying. He just proved that he is why he is the 4-time world champion. He's absolutely incredible. And then, of course, my dick of the day, it's always, regardless, even if he gets kicked out of Formula One, is Liam Lawson, because he's Liam Lawson and that's why. But anyway, Isidro, give me your driver of the day and dick of the day.
Driver of the day must be Max Verstappen. It was class what he did today. I mean, the whole weekend, basically, with the car that has the problems that they have, and he still managed to have a pole and a brilliant race today. So for me, Max Verstappen. And
awesome.
The dick of the day, it's difficult because it was a very slow race, nothing really major.
It was awesome.
I don't have anything against him. I'll say probably it doesn't deserve it, but maybe Norris trying to be cheeky in the pit stop. It's the only thing that really happened. I know that in the post race he said that it was fine. He knew he wasn't wrong, but he's the only one that pulled some cheeky movements on the race today.
Yeah, I definitely will agree with that one. It was I have to agree with the Norris dick of the day. Damien, who is your driver of the day and your dick of the day?
Well, you can't look beyond Max, right? Yeah, he just did it when he needed to, and yeah, he was just brilliant all race. So yeah, you can't look much far beyond him. As you say, Behrman, good shout there too, but yeah, it has to be Max. Dick of the day, I'm just going to say McLaren in general, or the McLaren strategy team. Grow a set, guys, and just go for it. For God's sake, sitting back is not going to win you drivers' championships. You're going to get points, but yeah, McLaren strategy team for me.
Just the entire McLaren strategy team. They are the dicks, the dicks of the day. Awesome. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I definitely have to agree with you on that one. I think overall the majority is Max. Incredible driver, incredible race, incredible qualifying. He just proved why he is the 4-time world champion, and he definitely delivered. But moving on, folks, we're going to move on to our predictions game. Of course, Japan has now come and gone. Thank God, because that was a snooze fest. But anyway, we'll start it off with Dave's predictions. So he did predict that in the top 3, it would be Norris, Piastri, and Hamilton. That was, we all know the result of that. So unfortunately, there was 0 points there. And then his flop was Antonelli to DNF, which was 0 points. And then his surprise was Tsunoda in the top 10. I think we all kind of predicted that Tsunoda was going to be in the top 10, but unfortunately that was he was outside the top 10, so he was P12, so that's 0 points. Then Owen did predict that Norris would come P1, Piastri P2, and Russell P3, so that is 0 points for that one. And then Behrman was his flop to be outside the top 10, that was 0 points. And then Tsunoda inside the top 10, which is another 0 points. Isidro, your predictions. What did you predict?
Piastri, Max, and Hamilton, which was close enough. At least Max was there, but yeah, 0 for everything.
Definitely.
And I got then the flop. Hulkenberg DNF didn't happen, and I was hopeful that Tsunoda would make Japan proud, but he didn't. He was outside top 10.
Yeah, we're not off to a good start here with our predictions for Japan. We were all playing it safe with Tsunoda, I think, this week, but he unfortunately he didn't deliver for any of us. My predictions were Norris P1, Verstappen P2, and Hamilton P3. I was very, very close with the Norris and Verstappen, but of course that is 0 points for myself. Then my flop was Sainz to DNF, and yeah, that didn't happen. And then of course Tsunoda in the top 10, which brings us to Damien. What were your predictions?
I had Norris P1, Piastri P2, Russell P3. So yeah, nothing there for me. But I think good old Lance Stroll produced me the only point outside the top 10 for the flop, which was genuine from the last race. And then I think I had Yuki in the top 10 for the surprise. So yeah, just 1 point for me.
Hats off, Damien. You got the single and only point out of all of us this weekend. So that moves you up to 5 points. Absolutely flying out there in the lead, representative of a 2023 Max Verstappen with your 5 points. That leaves Dave with 2 points, Owen with 2 points, Isidro, you're on 1 point, and myself as well, still on 1 point. It's the battle of Aidan and Isidro here at the back of the pack. But then, of course, look, next weekend, we have a triple header, obviously. We had Japan this weekend. We've got Bahrain next. And then we have Saudi Arabia coming up after that. But next weekend, we have Bahrain. So, obviously, we got the predictions from Dave and Owen. So, Dave has predicted that his top 3 will be Norris, Piastri, and Russell. Definitely a nice combination there. And then his flop will be the Bearman outside the top 10. And then his surprise will be Yuki Tsunoda inside the top 10. Are we playing it safe again until we actually get this right? We have just Tsunoda every single time. That's our surprise inside the top 10 for the remainder until he actually doesn't. We're like, oh my God, what a surprise. But yeah, and then
eventually you get the settings in the RV right. Eventually, if it doesn't get fired until then.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, lovely Marco won't come down too hard on Tsunoda over the next couple of races, and hopefully we'll get to keep him for a while, so we can actually get that 1 point. And then moving on, Owen had Piastri, Lando, and Verstappen in P1, P2, and P3, and then his flop is going to be Behrman outside the top 10 and Tsunoda inside the top 10. Again, played it safe with Tsunoda. And then Isidro, run me through your predictions.
My prediction is back to the safe McLaren. Norris P1, Piastri P2, and Verstappen P3.
Ooh, interesting. And what's your flop?
My flop would be Adjar outside top 10. I don't think Racing Bulls will be able to get some space in that cockpit for Adjar ball, so it'll be outside top 10. And then my surprise will be Sainz inside top 10. It's time for the men finally get some points on that Williams.
Yeah.
Because Albon has been shown that the Williams is actually a very nice car to drive. So it's time to see Sainz shine.
Yeah, and I have to say, like that Williams car, like even when you hear the onboards of it as well, it sounds fast. It really does sound fast, and it just sounds incredible. It really does. Hopefully he does actually pick up some points. With my predictions, you know what? Like, I don't really want to go off of the back of this weekend and go, oh, it's going to be a Verstappen, whatever. But I think next weekend, I think it's going to be Norris P1. I'm going to say Verstappen P2. And then in P3, because, yeah, maybe I'm going to say Leclerc P3. I think Piastri possibly might find it a little bit difficult around this track. But of course, look, Bahrain is a strange one. You never know what might happen. So yeah, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, P1, P2, and P3. My flop is going to be, let me see here. This is going to be a strange one. I'm going to say, do you know what? I'm going to play it super safe here, and I'm going to say Albon outside the top 10 for my flop.
That will be the first time.
Yep. Albon outside the top 10. I think he's just going to get so hot-headed that his car is just going to catch fire because he's that angry with how the car is behaving and his strategists and everything. So he's going to go outside the top 10. And then my surprise is going to be, I'm going to say Sainz inside the top 10 as well. Now, hopefully he actually delivers. Next weekend, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. That brings us on to Damien. What are your predictions for next weekend?
I'm going for Norris P1 and Verstappen P2 and Piastri P3. So a McLaren Red Bull Sambo there.
Oh, very, very nice. Love the sound of that papaya Red Bull Sambo.
And my flop is going to be Albon outside top 10. And my surprise will be Yuki inside the top 10.
Ooh, very, very nice. Playing it super safe there, hoping for a Red Bull miracle from Tsunoda. Yeah, we're yeah. That's it. Time to start scoring some points. We're all playing it safe for next weekend. So yeah, look, that brings us to our finale of our predictions. Look, Japan overall, it wasn't that exciting, but you know, Super Suzuka is always quite super. It's a great track. It's always fun to see a race at Suzuka, but it didn't really feel like a race at some points, but it still was good to see it. And of course, look, it's always good to have F1 back on the weekends. Hopefully we'll see some better action going into Bahrain. Obviously we'll definitely keep a close eye on the practice and qualifying and all that kind of good stuff. I always love a Bahrain race. A bit weird now, the fact that we've had it for so long as the first race on the calendar, but now it's like race 4 that we're getting it. So it's going to be an interesting one to see how it shapes up. But before we do wrap things up, any last thoughts, guys, before we finish up for today?
I think your predictions are really. I'm not sure. Williams doesn't show any reliability so far, any issue, and yet you are seeing the Albon outside top 10. I don't know.
Just going for a bit of a long shot, right?
That's it. I'm throwing the ball down the field with that one. It's just like I feel like Sainz is just going to dive bomb the entire grid at turn 1, and he's going to consistently keep there within the top of the field to get me that point. But Albon, he can't really rely on Albon all that much. He'd be a good driver in some races, but then in others he just kind of completely bottles it. Like, I know he is a good driver, don't get me wrong, but it's a bit of a weird one with him. But I don't know. I'm kind of playing it safe with the Williams combo there.
Sainz will wear a diaper probably.
You'll make sure to take a shit pre-qualifying a day before. Anything else as well, Damien? Anything you want to mention before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. But yeah, I think the Williams swapperoo there might be a bit of a difficult one to pull off. But yeah, other than that, looking forward to the next race.
Yeah. Definitely going to be a good one. Well, look, guys, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Isidro, as always, it is good to have you back here for the late night race review. It's good to have you here. We're looking forward to having you here for the rest of the season as well. And then Damien as well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us all the way over there from the US of America land. But until next week, folks, we will see you then. Hopefully, if you're listening to this today, you've caught the highlights and all that kind of stuff. And of course, look, let me know your thoughts in the comments section of wherever you're watching this or wherever you're listening to this as well. Give us your lovely thumbs up, a like, and subscribe, and all that kind of good stuff. But until next time, have a great weekend or a great start of your week, because this is obviously out on a Monday, and we will see you all in Bahrain. Adios.